Hi you guys, Anna Cortez here, author of the Playing Card Oracles. And I just went to see a really great movie, The Shape of Water. What a fantastic movie, what a fantastic story. And anytime that you have a great story, you have a great card reading opportunity. It's a great time to see how your cards reflect the symbology and the archetypes in a great story. And so I took my deck to the theater with me and I drew cards in the theater. You know, I just asked some questions intermittently throughout the movie and made a mental note of what came up. And then later on, I pulled those same cards out and played with them a little bit, moved them around the table, looked at the details on the cards and related it back to what I'd seen. So it's a great practice. I totally recommend it. You know, if you're a card reader, that kind of study and practice with your cards. And a great story just invites your cards to speak. And they really spoke for this movie. So the very first card that I drew was this card, the Five of Hearts. It's called Fata Morgana in the Playing Card Oracles. And by the way, this is the Playing Card Oracle Alchemy Edition deck. And the question that I asked was just like, okay, what's going on with this movie? Tell me about this movie. And right away, you know, even in the theater, this card felt really good for that question because it's in the suit of hearts, you know, and hearts in the playing card oracles is the suit associated with water, the water element, you know, so that right away felt like a connection. And then if you look at the image of this card, you know, half of the illustration is water on this card. It's a reflection in the water of this maiden standing here. And so that felt really good. But on inspecting this card further, it just went deeper and deeper. If you look at the reflection in the water, you know, it looks very different than what you see above the water. You know, it's supposedly a reflection, but it doesn't look like, you know, the thing it's supposed to be reflecting. In fact, it looks really monstrous. And right away, I thought of the creature, you know, the creature who lives in the water. And I thought of Eliza, you know, as the character above the water, and how these two find themselves in each other, how they reflect each other in a lot of ways, you know, and that's a really obviously unusual way to use this card, but it was perfect. Like so perfect. And, you know, looking a little further, you know, not wanting to miss anything here that was being given. I also was thinking about this stick, you know, that this character is holding, you know, and she's plucking a string that's attached to the piece of wood like an instrument. And I thought about the music in the movie and how important that was in connecting the two characters together. You know, how they share that bond. And I love how the instrument on the card sort of travels here from up above down into the water, you know, unbroken there. And I just thought that was so chilling, really. I mean, just amazing way to look at this card in relation to the movie. So really, really interesting study there. Okay, the next card drawn, I asked for just a companion card, you know, to the Five of Hearts. I wanted one more card to sort of depict the overall theme of the movie. And this was the card that came up. This is the Tower. It's the Six of Diamonds in the playing card oracles. And here on the card we see a very futuristic looking building. You know, it's really unlike the other illustrations in the deck in that it's so futuristic. And we see it surrounded here by water, you know, and right away I thought of the lab. You know, the lab is all about future science, future research, you know, the race to capture the future before the other countries. And in fact, if you think about it, or if you notice when you're watching the movie, that theme of embodying the future runs throughout the movie. You know, you see it in all different places in the movie if you're watching for it. So this is a perfect setting for our movie, for our story to take place, and I love this as a companion card for our Five of Hearts. So now, in the playing card oracles, there are 16 court cards, 16 archetypes that sort of define personality characteristics by the elements, the four elements, as well as, you know, age and gender and so forth. So I wanted to see an archetype for our main character, Eliza. I wanted to see how the cards would portray her. And so I asked the deck for that, and lo and behold, a court card came up, you know, and it was the Queen of Hearts. You know, this is Deja in the playing card oracle deck. And again, you know, a card in the heart suit felt really good. You know, hearts is associated with water, but hearts in the playing card oracles is also very strongly tied to the emotions. You know, this is the queen of the emotional realm. And I really like that for Eliza. Now, you know, I was a little perplexed also looking at this card in relation to Eliza, because this queen looks kind of hard to me. She's super, super strong. And Eliza has a really soft side. I mean, she's kind of girlish through a lot of the movie. She has that sweetness that I don't really see in this illustration. So I had to think about it a little bit, you know, trusting what I received. And if you think about Eliza in the movie, you know, she never doubts her heart. She never falters that way. And in fact, she becomes really strong about midway through the movie in her convictions of her heart. You know, think of the scene where she goes to her neighbor, right? And is talking to him about helping her rescue the creature, for example. And she becomes very firm, right? And demanding. And I think it's really at that point in the story when Eliza embodies her Queen of Hearts, you know? She kind of graduates from her more girlish self and becomes this strong queen, the ruler of her suit of hearts. And along with that, I was noticing her red cloak here, this queen's red cloak. Again, might seem like just a detail that you could easily overlook, but cards reveal themselves in layers, and the more you sort of meditate on the symbology, the deeper they go. At least in this deck, I can say that. And if you think about this red cloak, in my mind right away, I'm thinking about Eliza in the final scene of the movie where she's dressed all in red. She's got her red cloak on and red shoes. And, it's at that point that she has fully embodied this passionate nature of herself, And you'll notice, again, if you look closely at the movie, you're going to want to go see the movie again now. I know, after watching this video. Pay attention to Eliza's clothing throughout the movie. She starts to adopt little pieces of red clothing. She gets the red shoes, and then I think she gets a red headband. I'm going to have to watch it again and check all these details out for sure. But as she's embodying more and more of her passion, she starts doing that symbolically with the color of red that she's wearing. This is why I love Guillermo del Toro's movies, because you can do this with the movie. It's just, so well thought out, and it works so well with these cards. Really just amazing matchup here. Okay, let's move on to the next card. I wanted a card, an archetype, to represent the creature. Just one card to sort of represent that personality in our card spread. So this is the card that I was given. King of Spades, Marduk. A very strong image again, very strong imagery. And again, I was in the dark theater and I wasn't giving thought to these cards. I was just trying to glue them into my brain so I could look at them later. But even in the theater, I noticed how the shape of this king's head reminded me of the creature's head, sort of the silhouette of the creature. And what an unusual, sort of headpiece for a king, right? It's not like got a crown or a hat or hair or whatever. It's very animal-like. And then when I started thinking about this card more and relating it back to the creature, I noticed these gills, these ridges on the sides of this king's neck, these black ridges. And, obviously the monster, the creature, had these very visible sort of ridges or gills on the side of his neck. And then I thought about this sort of armor that this king is wearing. And it's green, it's got all these ridges in it, these like plates, kind of these scales looking things. And just the resemblance to the creature was something that I could not overlook, And I think that was really significant for this card because there's not a lot of personality that we see about the creature. You know, he's very quiet, you know, like Eliza is, you know, and they sort of share that. This king is kind of known to be more the silent type. He's more about action and not a wordy kind of archetype, and that felt really perfect for him. And same with Eliza's card. You know, we didn't talk about this when we were going over her card, but if you look in the Playing Card Oracle's book and you look under the description for the Queen of Hearts, there is an actual quote in there that says, the heart is an inarticulate organ, its mysteries lost to those who treasure words. Isn't that amazing? Because Eliza's mute. I mean, if you're going to have an archetype for someone who feels their world and, you know, becomes the queen without even having a verbal ability, it's this card. It's just amazing. Amazing. So those two kind of share that wordless quality, and I really liked that. You know, and this guy definitely looks carnivorous, and we know that the creature, you know, definitely likes protein. I mean, I'm kind of grasping for associations here, but, you know, I thought of that too. Just sort of this primal sort of quality that these characters share. And one other weird thing that happened, if you'll notice on my actual card here, there's like a stain across the top. And sometime between seeing the movie and making this video, my cards like got into water. And I don't know how it happened. I don't remember how that could have happened, but there's only certain cards that got this little water stain on them, and the creature is one of them. Isn't that funny? You know, I think that's funny. Just the card went swimming at some point. Okay, moving along. I wanted a card to represent the villain of our movie, right? The true monster of the movie. This is Strickland, and it's Dracula. 9 of Spades. And Dracula is not a court card, you know. He's a 9, but I think he's really appropriate for Strickland. You know, you just get this sort of menacing feeling from Strickland. He's just there creating this mood throughout the movie, this threat that, you know, you feel throughout the movie. And he's definitely a dark character. And in fact, Strickland wants to seduce Eliza, which is very Dracula-like. Seductive, like in a predatory kind of way. So I like that for Strickland, but I wanted a little more, you know, so I asked the deck, okay, one more card for Strickland, give me a qualifying card. And I got this card, the 6 of Spades. This is called the Ruin. And here we see a literal ruin, you know, something falling apart. And I like that with Dracula. It really creates a very intense kind of mood here. And when I thought about how this ruin card related to the movie itself and what it might symbolize from the movie, I thought about Strickland and just sort of his rotten nature, you know, kind of his rotten heart. And, you know, that felt really, you know, like a good association. And I love in the movie how Strickland's fingers are rotting. Is that not just like great storytelling? I just thought that was so great. How his fingers were just getting more and more smelly and rotten as the movie went on. And that, to me, reflected back to this card as well. Sort of less a ruin and maybe something that's actually rotting, you know, as defining sort of the character and the soul of Strickland. So I liked that. Okay, moving on to the next card. Oh yeah, about 2/3 of the way or so into the movie, I started to get super tense, and I was wondering, you know, what was going to happen at the end of the movie. And so I asked my cards, like, what's going to happen at the end? And this was the card that came up. 7 of Clubs, the Sword of Enchantment, you know? And this is the first club card that we've received, you know? And clubs is associated with the element of air. So it's much lighter, you know, energy being represented here. And air represents all the things that we can't see with our physical eyes. It's the forces that definitely affect us, but that, you know, sometimes we have trouble believing in just because we can't see it, you know? So that was really perfect for the ending of this movie. You know, the director really asks us to take a leap into the imaginary and believe in things that, you know, we might doubt otherwise. And that's what the Sword of Enchantment is all about. It's like the director uses this sword as, you know, a magical tool on the audience. And so really perfect. That's what Guillermo del Toro is so good at, magical realism. So, okay, so I asked for one more card to be a companion card to the 7 of Clubs. What else about the ending? And it was this card. You know, this super intense card called the Curse. And, you know, we can feel this at the end of the movie. The horror and the intensity as Strickland and our heroes sort of have this final showdown, right? And it's like trial by fire kind of thing. You know, people get shot, etc., etc. And combined with this card, it really creates this juxtaposition here, like we lift out of this intense situation with this sword in the air element and escape in a way. It's just really cool to see these two very different cards working together to create the end of this very magical movie. And one last card. I wanted one other card for the ending because there was so much going on there. You know, just so much going on. And I drew this card. Another sword, right? Looks just like the other card, but it's in the water element back to the water element, the suit of emotion. And this sword has a little different function, right, than this other sword. This is the sword of healing. The sword of healing. And doesn't that play a critical role in the final scene of the movie? You know, because the creature has this very magical healing ability, you know? And what would the story be without that? I mean, that was critical. So very interesting. And you know, this card got water on it too. Another card with a major watermark happening there. You know, no surprise as the creature and his healing ability go together here. So that's the movie in cards. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks so much for watching.